All right, so let's get started. I'm excited to kick off this month's book club for Thoughtful Travellers, especially because we have our actual author here today. So a huge welcome, Mary Morris, live from New York, and the author of this month's book, All the Way to the Tigers.
Oh, if we're doing this, I'll do it too.
So snap.
Thank you,
it's
Amanda.
Good. Probably we've all read the book.
Yes, I have read the book, so yes.
I shared a quote on Twitter the other day of someone saying, write about what you love. And the subquote after write about what you love was because you'll have to read it 175 times while you write it.
It's true, really. Right. At least that, yeah.
At least, indeed. And welcome, Justin. Justin, you are in lockdown in Canberra at the moment, so hopefully book club is a little bright spot on your lockdown day.
It'll be my social highlight of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We were just chatting before the call, and Mary was saying it's very warm over there. So for Australian
warm is a
standards,
polite term, Amanda.
Sorry,
warm
yes.
Boiling here, yeah.
Boiling. So near the century. So 37 degrees on our standards, right. Which is very warm.
Brooklyn, New York here.
Mm-hmm. In Brooklyn, right.
Brooklyn, yeah.
Yeah, no, I was complaining about it being cold here, but that sort of heat is not good either. So yeah.
No.
Oh dear. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Justin, do you have the group up somewhere? I've closed it because it was Margaret's here. Okay. Good. We'll see. So welcome anyone who's watching live, especially. And if you have any comments or questions or just thoughts about the book, things you want to ask Mary, things you want to share, then please just pop them in the chat and we will have a look and see what you've said. So welcome. Now, I want to get stuck into this book because I found this book actually by accident, which is the best way to find a good book, I think. My local library is exceptionally good at I think it's almost good at ruining my free time because it takes up so much time to read the books I discover. I walk in just to pick one book up that I've reserved, and they have this amazing shelf where they put, recommended reading up, and inevitably they seem to know exactly what I want. And so it must be 6 months ago now, I picked up the hard copy of All the Way to the Tigers thinking, looks interesting. And I devoured it, within a day because it was fabulous. And so now that the paperback is out, I thought it was a great time to have it for book club. So thank you, Mary, for writing this.
Thank you, Amanda. I love that you devoured it. That's the exact image I want.
It's very tigery, isn't it?
Very tiger-like. Very wild.
Now, I want to start off by chatting about things that go wrong. Now, it's a funny thing, human nature, because when I publish podcast episodes about things going wrong, they tend to be the most popular episodes. I'm sad to say. So last week I had an episode where Henry Gold was nearly killed by an elephant, which trampled across his bicycle as he was, just gently cycling past. Also in India, actually.
Oh my God. Oh.
But people loved this episode. I got so many private messages about it. So people love when things go wrong. And there's quite a few things that go wrong in All the Way to the Tigers. Things like kind of the impetus even for going is the fact that you had it.
Yeah, I think things go wrong right from the beginning. But if I forget, I have one thing. Years ago, I was in an anthology. Called Bad Trips, which is an awesome name. And the whole idea was that the only good trips are the bad trips, and the only memorable travel moments are the ones where things go wrong. So it's an anthology about things going wrong. Things went wrong from the start. So I was on a sabbatical. It was my first sabbatical in 14 years when I did not have a child at home. And I had planned to do something that I had been wanting to do for almost 2 decades, which was be a nomad, wander, do whatever I wanted. I mean, I'm a traveler. I didn't have any, I was free. And the very first day of my sabbatical, I turned to my husband and I said, let's go ice skating. And 2 hours later, I was in the emergency room. I had completely shattered my leg. Not only didn't I go anywhere for the next 3 months, but I spent my entire sabbatical on disability. And I had a very, very long pity party, canceling every reservation I'd made all over the world, riads and Morocco and flights all over and ferry rides and just canceling. And I have to say, everyone I had to cancel with was incredibly kind. I never met any resistance except my own.
You
So
probably sounded quite heartbroken as you were canceling, so they took pity on you.
I was probably crying. I was it was a very, actually, I from this distance, this was in 2008. So from the distance, it's funny, but it was anything but funny.
I bet.
And it was such a terrible accident that the doctor didn't even know if I'd ever walk again. So I will tell this very quickly. So here I was, really derailed. I mean, talk about a detour. And also, I just want to add that at the time I was worried about jury duty because I'd gotten called up for jury duty, and I was calling people and saying, how do I get off of jury duty? And a friend came over and she said, Mary, you were worried about jury duty? I mean, look at you, like, you're not going anywhere. I was like, thanks,
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
yeah. So anyway, it was Easter Sunday. I'd been laid up for about, I don't know, almost 2 months. I'd had one surgery. I was scheduled for another. My husband's a journalist. He works on Sundays, and I was alone. I was home alone on my couch, feeling incredibly sorry for myself. And I was reading Death in Venice. And this is what I'd like to say to all writers and every creative person out there. If something feels like a bolt of lightning, pay attention to it. And I was sitting there reading, and I thought, I just was so miserable. And I came to a line in Death in Venice, which read, he would go on a journey not far, not all the way to the tigers. And I just sat there and I couldn't move, and I read it over and over again. And I said to myself, if and when I walk again, I will go all the way to the tigers. And I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if I would physically go or if I was a metaphor in my life. I mean, I didn't know what shape it would take. And, this was in 2008, and I published the book over a decade later. So it gives you a sense of the gestation. But so that was definitely the first detour. And then just for, as you know, Amanda, that in the book, when I left for India, I was quite ill, and I certainly didn't get better on that trip. I had terrible bronchitis. And so there were just a lot of elements of this trip that were very difficult, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I think even today, you look at what's going on in the world, and I know many people have cancelled trips, and some of them would have been planning them for years. So there's something in it about doing it when you've got the opportunity to do the trip that or whatever it is in life you really want to do, because as you found out when you broke your ankle, you couldn't go anywhere. And then when you had the opportunity, it seems to be always best to just take that opportunity when you've got it, rather than just think, I can do it later on, because you just don't know. You just don't know when you will be able to get that opportunity.
I mean, I think COVID has really taught us that. And I've heard this, I really think you articulated it beautifully, Justin, that really, when we can, we should. And if we can't, we have to be mindful of not being able to. But, if it's there, I've always wanted to go to Africa. And as soon as it's really okay, I'm going to do it, because I'm not going to wait for my grandchildren to grow up to go to Africa. I want to go. So yes, we have to. And that can be true of many, many different aspects of our lives, not just travel, but just, so
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I really love the genesis of the whole book, the whole trip as well. Just that lightning bolt idea has really resonates with me. I think that you just never know what the impetus is for certain things in life, but when you have some idea, to follow it through is really worth doing and really satisfying. So, yeah.
There are moments in my life, and I think this is one of them, where I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Go away. I don't want to do that. That wasn't my plan. I had a different plan. But like, if it's like a snowball run, once I had that sentence in my head, I somehow couldn't walk away from it. It was just going to happen. It's like meeting someone at a party and knowing you're kind of going to fall in love with that person, but you don't really want, it's just like, how do we move forward in our lives? And sometimes you just have to really trust that impulse that goes through you in that strong, powerful way, and not ignore it.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah,
so true. Justin, question.
I was really fascinated by how you structured the book, and partly because it resonated with me, because my brain kind of likes to jump around from I'll try and multitask all the time, every day, read a book and watch something. And so just the way you wrote the book, I felt like I was getting to a bit in the story and I go, okay, and then we'd jump and you put a tiger fact in, or you would go back to your childhood, or you go back. And I'm just curious, was this something you set out to write deliberately, or did you start just thinking you were just going to write about the tigers, or just the tigers and the ice skating, or how did you come about that idea?
It's a really great question. And I love answering this for readers and also for writers, because when I first wrote the book, this might be it's going to be a slightly longish answer, but I'll try to keep it shorter. So no, I had the structure was never in my mind in the early stages of writing it. I began writing it shortly after my accident so I keep copious journals, and actually my computer is sitting on my current journal, which I would love to show you, but I have to move the computer. But I keep these, I'm going to do that. I keep these.
Yeah, show me. I love seeing people's journals.
I have this great big journal, right? So I keep
pretty.
These journals. I keep physical journals all the time. So I actually began writing this, lying on my couch after my accident, talking about all the things that I was feeling about it. And then I went to Morocco, and I began to travel a little bit before India. And I did some sort of preliminary travel, and I went to Thailand, and India was a little bit later once I started going again. But I wrote a 420-page manuscript that had all of that in it, all of it. It had the accident, all those other journeys, Thailand, and much more of India. So it was 420 pages. And I, quite frankly, couldn't sell it. I tried, And my editor, who was a very brilliant editor, Nancy Lease, she said, Mary, I think now that you've written these pages, you can start to really write the book. And of course, that infuriated me. I was very unhappy with that. But what this book was really about was about rendering it down and saying what is really going to matter in this book. And what I decided mattered was tigers, India, my accident. Those were the threads. And then I read everything I could about tigers, and I got all these little factoids, Justin, like you're saying, and I have a big bulletin board behind me where I would pin all this stuff up on the bulletin board in no order or organization at all, nothing. It just was utterly random. And anyway, the book began with my accident originally, and then it went to India. And then at one moment I said to myself, and this is kind of a weird thing to say, so here's the physical book. I said to myself, I want the book, if I'm going to write the book, I want the book to be a tiger. So what did I mean by that? I wanted it to be lean and mean, and I wanted it to have stripes. So those short little notes that I had for myself, I'm sharing this with you, were
awesome.
the tiger stripes in my mind. And I wanted those short little, I really wanted the book physically to become the thing that it was about. And that was part of my rendering process. It took 10 years. This is not something I just woke up and said, oh, I'm going to do that. And I say this to all creative people. I mean, you don't necessarily just sit down and that's it. And I do want to share one last thing, because what you were saying about the different threads, Justin. So there is India. There is my accident. There's all the little tiger bits and pieces, and there's my childhood. So I had this big mess of a manuscript, and I didn't know what to do with it. I had 4 threads, and I decided to print each one of them on a different colored paper. So all of the little short tiger vignettes were printed, I think, on yellow paper, and all of India, I think, was on green, and the accident was on white, and then childhood was blue. And then I visually moved the pages around. So the short answer is no. I had no idea what I was doing when I set out.
No,
which is a lot about travel also, right? Like sometimes the best travel is you just, the journey is the destination.
I love the process though. It's
fascinating.
Yeah. I think there'll be probably a lot of people who've read the book and go, oh wow, I never thought of it like that. And how you actually got it and molded it into that tiger, as you called it, to reflect the tiger.
It had no organization when I started it for years. Many
That's
years.
amazing. Yeah. That's brilliant. And as you say, it's lean. That's exactly one of the things I really loved about the book is it is lean. It doesn't feel overwritten or overtold. It's just all it needs to be there. It's just beautifully put like that.
And I think as I was kind of alluding to it, you kind of got to a bit in the book where you've gone, I've read enough about this now. I now want to go back and hear about the trip in India, or what about Mary? I want to hear more about her ankle now. and so it's kind of like channel surfing on the TV, flicking the channels.
Yeah.
Right. But
you kind of wanted all the stories to progress, but you go through one and then I want to find out about the other stuff. So yeah, that's what I really liked about the book. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I mean, as I say, it was 420 pages and this manuscript was about 275. So I threw out, and there were probably more pages than that also. I feel like in a way it's a book that's kind of multitasking, it's doing, you know what I mean? It's like
doing lots of things at once.
I had that feeling, like I thought, oh, this is enough about my mother. It's time for, it's time to get back to India, or it's time for a tiger tidbit. Yeah. So you also have to listen as a writer to your own instinct. Like if I was getting bored, Flannery O'Connor once said, if it's not a surprise for the writer, it won't be a surprise for the reader. And I would also, if I found myself getting restless with my own material, I knew the reader would get restless. So I just would say, okay, time to get back to India. Time to, so.
Well, I think you got that balance really perfectly
Thank
right.
you.
So well done.
Thank you.
Just a couple of comments from our members here. Margaret said, I was quite concerned about Mary's health throughout the book. That's a fair comment.
As was Mary.
And she also said that she loved the structure of the book. So yes, I agree with that. Now, the topic I want to talk about next is kind of the slow travel idea. So within the book, certainly, when you're on the hunt for the tiger, or hunt's the wrong word, search for the tiger, search for tigers, you just spend an extended period of time in two places, which is not so typical for the way people travel, but I think a really good way. And I often talk with podcast guests about the idea of slow travel and spending a longer time in lesser number of places. And I have a hope that post-COVID that will be kind of a more important thing too, because it might be a simpler way to travel is to spend a longer time in one place. So I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on the slow travel idea and spending longer in.
No, I think I think it's partially the difference between the traveler and the tourist. And I mean, I have never, for example, okay, so probably for at least the past 25 or so years, with my family, my husband, we swap our house with people all over the world, strangers, because I like to put myself down somewhere and learn about a place. I don't want to hop around. I don't want to keep moving. And I don't really like hotels very much either. I mean, just, I like the idea of being somewhere. And that was really worked for me in India. I had a really good chunk of time in Pench with my guide, Ajay, who was phenomenal. And quite frankly, if I could have stayed, if I have any sadness in the book, it was that, I don't want to give anything away in the book, but I would have liked to have had more time with him.
Yeah.
He was really my guy, he was special. And he was really a poet. If a guide could be a poet, he was a poet to me. And I think there's a lot about just, one of the things I say in the book is that if you move the letters around in the word listen, it becomes silent. And I'm a kind of very busy person in my brain, but I also seek that kind of silence and that stopping. I want to stop. And that to me is what slow travel allows you. And you can't really meet people if you're always rushing to the next place, or you always have a tour guide taking you around, the best experiences I've ever had have quite frankly been when I've gotten lost, or when I just, went to a cafe or a bar and just hung out and talked to somebody. To me, that's more important than, when I first booked this trip, I worked with I have a travel agent I've worked with for many, many years. I mean, all she does is book my flights, but I love her. um, but I had to work with actually a travel guide, the travel outfitter, and she came back with what's called the Golden Triangle. So it was like, Delhi, the Taj Mahal, Agra, and Rajasthan, where there's a Ranthambore, where there's, she sent that back to me, and I said, no, I definitely don't want to go to the Taj Mahal. I don't want any of that. I said, I just want to go somewhere where I can be. And that's what she did. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my thing. I want to be with the locals. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's I'm going to say something that Marcel Proust, I like to quote Marcel Proust. This may be in the book, but Proust once said that travel isn't about seeing new places. It's about seeing with fresh eyes. And so to me, it's more important to have those fresh eyes on the world. And maybe that's something we've learned from COVID and lockdown is, how to find meaning in being in place,
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I think what you've just described is exactly my definition of being a thoughtful traveler. So, and I concur and always try and travel in basically exactly the way you've described. So yeah, right. I completely agree.
I mean, I have friends who say to me, oh, Mary, my God, I want to travel with you. You're such a great traveler. And I said, no, you actually don't want to travel with me because I don't do anything. I don't really go anywhere. I was going to go on this awesome trip with our family and a friend's family. We were going to go on this trip, and we planned it, and we decided we were going to have our last meeting, and we got together, and one of their family members said, okay, I found this really great Sherpa outfit that's going to carry our stuff. And I said, I'm not going. So I can't do that. It was fine. I mean, we're really, really dear friends, but it just wasn't the right culture for me. I think there are people for whom that, having someone carrying having your food ready when you get to the next place. I sound like I'm being a little weird here, but you know what I mean? I just want to be in places.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. All the time you hear about people who go in groups and they have an argument and it ruins the whole trip, or me, I kind of shy away from, except sometimes I'm in a location and the only way I want to experience what I want to experience there is with a tour of some description, because often and like, for example, my most recent experience was in Ethiopia, and we were trekking up in the mountains, and the only way to do that was with a guide,
right?
And so you had no option there, but at least I knew it was only a day or 2 days, and then that was that, and I could go back to doing travel the way I feel comfortable doing and what I enjoyed doing. So sometimes, yeah, but it's completely understandable.
I also think being with
to do that. I mean, look, I had guides in India, but I suppose what was fortunate and unfortunate was that it was winter and there weren't really any tourists. So I basically had these guys to myself. And, obviously there are times when if you want to climb a mountain in Ethiopia and you need to go with a group, you go with the group. But it doesn't mean you spend your whole,
No, that's right.
Yeah.
And also being with that kind of a group, Justin, that's probably more akin to
Like-minded.
Getting to know the locals kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's, quite different to, I don't know, doing a bus tour of Paris or something.
Yeah,
so,
a 40-person tour of
oh my God, what a nightmare.
highlights of Europe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So yes, there's very
and I will say I've had guides to myself in a few places. I did a little safari in Sri Lanka looking for leopards. I didn't see any leopards, unfortunately. But my guide, because I was the only person with my guide, and the cost, I think the cost of the Jeep was the same price. So he asked me what I wanted to see, and I said, well, I don't want to go where everyone else is going. So he took me to a lagoon, and we saw herds of elephants. And around lunchtime, we stopped somewhere, and there were some other people, and someone said to me, "Oh, this park's not very good." And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Oh, we've hardly seen anything, only birds, and heard a few monkeys." I said, "Oh, I saw so many elephants this morning," and yeah.
Because you went where not everyone goes.
Yeah,
That's often the key, isn't it?
Yeah. I
And
mean, it
sure,
was like a moment. There was a moment in All the Way to the Tigers when, you know, I got this guide Ajay, and I was only supposed to have him for that one day because of the way that guides are set up, and then I wound up having to sort of, I mean, bribe other guides in order for me to keep Ajay with me. And there was a moment after 5 or 6 days we hadn't seen a tiger, and they took me to this place that was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and it was this bucolic watering hole, and there were, you know, all kinds of animals and birds and you know, water buffalo and wild boar and beautiful antelopes, and we just sat there in quiet, and I said to them, why did you bring me here? And they said, because you want to see everything. And they said, most people only come for the tigers, but you want to see everything. And that was enough for me. That was the perfect moment. So I totally understand.
I know big cats, tigers, lions, leopards, cheetahs, they just don't wait for you to turn up to see them. So they're hard to find. So, you know, you can never go in with expectations that you're going to see it straight away. And I think you did probably the right thing going for so many days in one place, because that's what they all say, you know, you need to take your time. You need to come here for several days. You're not just going to see one. It's not like an amusement park where they're all lined up waiting to see. So,
I mean, for me, one of the important metaphors in the book, which is something that Ajay said to me very early on, and I mean, I'm a writer and I began as a poet, so these things become metaphors for me. He said, you don't look for tigers, you look for signs of tigers. And I took that very deeply to heart, because it's not like you go, oh, I'm going to find the tiger, but sometimes it's the things you find around finding the tiger that become the real beauty of your journey. You know, that that's why if you only have this destination in mind, you might be missing the elephants, you know, and all the other things that are beautiful that, you know, so.
And I just find those moments, even if it's just you, and especially if it's just you and your guide, and you're just there in the moment with an animal in its natural habitat, and you're just observing it. It's just such a magic feeling that, and it doesn't really matter on the animal there. It's just, you know, you're just there observing the animal go about its normal business, and just, yeah, it's just a real magical feeling, I find, which is why I like to go wildlife and spot animals so much.
Yeah, I mean, we have to talk more. Actually, I'd love to know more about where you've been. But you know, I think that in the detours and the things where we feel we're derailed, sometimes that's where your real journey lies. I could say time and time again, for me, that has been my experience. Is, you know, in fact, I've rarely gotten to where I was intending to go, I must say. That seems to be a theme in my life in every way, shape, or form, I think. But yeah.
But that's okay.
Yes.
It's more than
I do
okay.
want to say, I do want to add one thing, which was, you know, part of the terrible thing for me about my accident was when the doctor told me, well, he told me many things. He told me that a racehorse would be put down for less, which didn't cheer me up. And when he told me to walk, he said, okay, you're good to walk now after 3 months. And I couldn't take a step. And I went back to him a few weeks later, and he said, well, what do you mean by walk? And I said, well, I walk like 5 miles a day. I walk. And he goes, well, you'll probably be able to go to the store for a quart of milk. And I was like, okay. To me, that was a nightmare, because I want to walk the places. I want to walk Paris. I don't want to take the bus rides in those cities, or, you know, I want to walk or bicycle or I want to be in the ground, on the land, with the people, with the animals, with the life, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very glad for you that you were able to rehab that smashed ankle enough that you've been able to get back into that. So
I'm fine. Yeah,
wonderful. Yes, because it sounded really, it sounded like
terrible. It was terrible. But I will say this to everyone: what cured me was swimming.
Interesting. Right.
Yeah.
Swimming is amazing.
Swimming.
Yeah. Brilliant.
But, you know, I just think that sometimes we have to let go of the idea that, you know, we have an itinerary or we have a thing we have to see. And if we can let go of that, then sometimes the other thing is, you know,
Even better.
even better. But we often don't realize we've seen it, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Often you go away somewhere and what you think the highlight of your trip's going to be wasn't actually the highlight. It was something else you've discovered on the journey that you found far more interesting and enjoyable. So,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
to be, you know, walking enables you to find these things, or even just talking to the locals and they'll say, oh, you should go do this if you like that. And especially because a lot of travel highlights are tailored for the larger audience, whereas you might have particular interests. And so, yeah.
And allowing time. So making sure you've got that time built into, you know, you don't have an overscheduled trip where there's no time to discover these things. That's so important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare. I think if someone gives me an itinerary, I mean, you know, it's sort of like the thing where people say, oh my God, you've got to go to this restaurant, you've got to go to this place, you've got to go there. And then what you really find is that you stumble into this little place on the corner and it's like where you're going to go to all the time, or you find that, you know, you have to make your own discoveries. What's the point if someone else is making them for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's boring, I think, anyway. Look,
Totally
I think there's
agree.
sometimes when you've got a limited amount of time and there's, you know, and resources, and, you know, I'm pretty lucky in my life and in my career that I'm privileged and that I can do this. I will add, I work very hard to get to this place where I can do this, but, you know, I feel very privileged. And I think, you know, there are times when you're only going to have a week's vacation. And so it might make sense to have that, you know, that bus tour,
More
that
scheduled
guided tour, but be sure you have time for yourself. You know?
And I always say, like, I think the week's vacations probably quite common, especially in, say, in countries where you don't get a lot of leave. But I always say to people, it's like that week, you're going to have a great week of travel regardless of what you see there, because you don't have to try and get around a whole country to enjoy that 1 week. So if that 1 week was just in a couple of towns or something like that, you're going to find things that you're going to love doing in that week without, you know, getting on a train, overnight train, bus, or flying to another city and then flying and trying to see the whole country in 1 week.
Right.
You're going to have more unenjoyable time because waiting in airports it's not necessarily,
and the stress and the rush of it all. If you're trying to get around and see everything, it's much less pleasant.
Right.
So
I mean, I think it's really, you know, I haven't done this, but I have a friend who's she's single, she travels all over the world, and the way she does it is she'll book 3 weeks somewhere where she wants to go, and 1 week of it will be a kind of guided tour. And then on either end, she'll allow herself to have that free time to roam and find things and so on and so forth. And that works really,
it's a good compromise,
really well for her, you know. And I think we have to make those adjustments for what our needs are and our levels of comfort and discomfort and you know,
exactly,
all of that. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I think though, I think it's just, you just got to be, it's just the whole flexibility of what you're doing when you're traveling, because as we know, things go wrong. And so you've got to be able to, rather than get all upset that something has gone wrong and it's ruined your day, or you just got to find the positive and find what you can do to get around it. And, you know, things aren't always going to go right. And
that's a good thing, really.
Let me share an anecdote. This was a long time ago, but I was taking the Trans-Siberian Railroad from Beijing. Well, I was supposed to go from Beijing to Moscow. It wound up being to Berlin, and that's a whole other story, which is part of this whole question of the detour and what is your destination and all that. But at that time, so the Trans-Siberian Railroad would stop it. So it went from China to Mongolia into the Soviet Union, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it actually only went to the Soviet Union. Anyway, that's not important right now. But when I was at the place between Outer Mongolia and Siberia, the train had to change its the train had to change its wheels because the grade of the track changed. Okay. So we could get off the train. I got some money. I was traveling alone. And I went back into my compartment, and a very tall, blonde Russian soldier came in, followed me into my compartment and stood there. And I stood there. And he started looking at things I had on my bunk and different things. And he picked up different things. And I felt very, very uncomfortable. I was in a very uncomfortable situation. Mm. And I had a Walkman. That'll date me, but it was, a while ago. I had a Walkman, and he pointed to it, and I happened to have Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto in the Walkman, and I put it on his ears, and I pushed the button, and he started dancing in my compartment and swaying back and forth. And then I flicked it out, took the tape, put it in his pocket, and he thanked me and he left. And it was, to me, a perfect moment. It could have been something else on a lot of levels, but that was fine. He left with Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. I had my integrity and my Walkman, and I went on my way. So that's the kind of travel moment where it's like, okay, I got to think on my feet here. I've got to do the right thing, because the wrong thing might be really the wrong thing. But if I get it right, so, and I think not that those kinds of things we're looking for that can happen to us, but just, having good instincts and feeling like, I'm in a situation, how do I make the most of it? How do I feel safe in this situation? So
yeah, it's a good approach.
It was a little dark maybe, but sorry about that.
No, it's interesting. My ears prick up when I hear Trans-Siberian, because it's one of my favorite trips too. So
have you taken that trip, Amanda?
Yeah, I went from Vladivostok across to Moscow and up to St. Petersburg about, oh goodness, 2003. So yeah, so it was.
I'd love to do that trip again. I would really.
Me too. I want to do it nonstop. I did it, I took a couple of weeks and got off several times and homestayed along the way, which was amazing. But I really want to just sit on the train for the full week. I just have this.
It's a long train ride.
It is. I just have this bee in my bonnet about doing it nonstop.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. To me, a train is a narrative. It's like stories of everything. But also going back to what we were saying, I feel like I have kind of the mind of an 8-year-old. I mean, I want to see everything, and I want to stay. I want to stay longer than everybody else wants to stay, and you should allow yourself those opportunities when you're on the road, I think, if you're a thoughtful traveler.
100%. Right? Yeah, I think probably Justin and I could probably both agree we have the minds of 8-year-olds when we travel.
Definitely.
Best travelers have the minds of 8-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got an 11-year-old now, but when he was an 8-year-old, we did do a lot of traveling, not so much in the last 2 years, but absolutely, that was exactly how he sees the world as well. Always wanting to know more and duck down funny little alleyways, or, just be and and learn. So yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm married to someone who I've traveled with for over 30 years now, when I'm not traveling alone, who just understands that there's just going to be moments where I'm just going to stop for an hour and look at something, or go, no, we're not actually going there, we're actually going here, and just, whatever.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It has to be, right?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the best way.
You have to be free, right? You have to feel
free.
Yes. Otherwise, what's the point? We're choosing to travel. It's not something that's mandated and we must follow a set of rules. It's for our own wonderful experiences. So
yeah, I mean, there's no point in traveling if you don't want to do it to feel free, because you can feel not free just going to your job and being at home, right?
Exactly. It's much cheaper to feel not free.
It's much cheaper. It's definitely much cheaper.
Oh dear. Justin, do you have any last questions?
Yeah, I think I was just wondering on your thoughts about tigers, and we hear, I think you answered all about the facts and how you had a wall of tiger facts, which is really amazing. Cool. And I kind of wish I had a wall of tiger facts now. But also, last year, there was this whole thing about people who, especially in America, who kept tigers as pets. And I think based on what I read in the book, you would not be a fan. You're not a fan of such a thing, because it just seems wrong to me that you keep such a majestic or any animal, locked up just for your own pleasure.
Right. I mean, a real misinformation or interpretation that people have is this thought that tigers will be extinct. Well, tigers will not be extinct, but they may be extinct in the wild, because a male tiger needs a square 100 square kilometers. A male tiger needs a lot of room for its territory, a lot of room. I don't have the number in front of me right now, but it's a lot of room. And there just isn't that much room left in the world. And that's one of the reasons why tigers are among our last truly wild creatures. They are solitary apex predators.
Yeah.
But there are over 12,000 tigers, for example, in private collections in the United States.
Wow.
Now, the purpose of them is, in my opinion, nefarious. But, some people have them as pets. Some people actually hunt them on their land. It is, it's not good. But, there are lots of giant feline rescues now and places that you can support that do help, get tigers out of circuses and zoos and things like that. But I mean, a tiger is not a pet, and a tiger is also not an animal. It will not be your friend. It will always be a wild animal. As Siegfried and Roy found out, he trained that tiger for Manticore for years, and it turned on him, and who knows why. So we need to embrace our wild creatures and support them and support the wilderness and the wildness.
Keep some environment for them.
Let's keep some environment, huh?
I think I know Amanda's done some podcasts recently on looking after these animals in the wild, and the value that keeping them in the wild is, because that in itself is a way to generate money for the locals in that town. If they realize that looking after the wildlife in their area will bring people to come and see the wildlife in their area, and that helps create jobs for them, then you don't have these issues of them going extinct in the wild. So it is really sad. And
it's a huge initiative. The Tiger Project in India is an incredible initiative that to educate first of all, locals and villagers learn that there is money to be had from tourism, and it's good for the Indian government. At the same time, tigers are roaming near their villages and their homes and their fields. So part of the initiative has to be to create what are called buffer zones, between where people live and where tigers roam. And sometimes that means moving a village away from the buffer zone. And there's a lot of resistance to that. So it's really striking a balance between what the local needs and economic needs, and what it means to keep, tigers in the wild.
It's tricky, isn't it? But I remember in the acknowledgements, I think right at the back of your book, some of those the good organizations were listed, which I always like to hear about.
Also on my website, it's
awesome.
marymorse.net. If you go to my website, on the first page of the website, it tells you some of the places that you can support if you're interested in tiger conservation, and they're good organizations, and I highly recommend them.
And as you said, the range, I think it's the range of the tigers. It makes it so hard to help them in the wild, because they need such a huge range. And
I think it's 100 square kilometers.
We have
per tiger, per male tiger.
Wow.
And because I think of some of the things that I know have been done, even just in my area, and we've got this huge fenced off grassland area for the small marsupials to live in, to keep the feral cats and dogs and stuff out. But as big as that area is for those creatures, to do something even like that for a tiger, and tigers can scale fences and stuff, and so it does start. Some of these animals, it does start to get very hard to.
It's a huge challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
it's
but I honestly hope I get a chance one day to see, a tiger.
Well, I can tell you. You can talk to me. We can talk about where to go. I mean, yeah, it's a very big challenge, but also, quite frankly, the environment is a big challenge right
Yeah.
now, and preserving habitat is a big challenge all over the world. And certainly in Australia, you've dealt with fires and things like
Yeah.
that, and what these challenges are. So we certainly have it
Yeah.
here. And if we
Yeah.
don't make the earth better for all creatures, it's
No.
not going to be good for us either.
No,
in the end.
absolutely
So,
right.
yeah. So it's
yeah.
important, very important.
Well, our time is almost up, unfortunately, although I would like to chat to you all day, Mary. But I have one last quick question. I want to know if you are working on another book. Please say yes.
Like, I am. So I'm not working on a travel book at the moment just because it hasn't come to me.
Right.
But I do have a novel under contract. I'm also a fiction writer,
Yeah.
and I'm working on a couple of novels. And I've written 5 travel memoirs about my journeys as a woman alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a 6th one of that exactly. So the answer in terms of a travel book is no, but I don't usually plan it. It usually just happens to me. It's kind of an accident.
Well, I hope you have
Hopefully
an accident
a good
like
accident.
that then. Yeah, a
A
good
happy
accident.
I'm looking for a happy accident.
Oh, that's good. Well, yes. Thank you, Mary, for
Thank you so
joining
much.
us for our
Thank
Thoughtful
you.
Travelers Book Club today. It was
Thank you.
fabulous to talk to you. I feel like I could, I'm sure Justin and I would like to chat to you for about another 3 or 4 hours. But
we'll have to do it another time.
Yes, we'll have to come back. For
Absolutely.
anyone who hasn't read it yet, here it is, All the Way to the Tigers by Mary Morris. Highly, highly recommend. Definitely one of my favorites. So thank you. It's so
all
beautiful
very,
too.
very
Tiger
Really,
cover did it. I knew it was going to be good from the tiger cover. So
yeah, it is a beautiful cover. The designer of that did a good job. So
she did do a good job.
I bet you were
Thank
thrilled
very
when you
much,
saw it.
and have a great day where you guys are. And
thank you, Mary. I just have a quick plug for our next book. So our next, it's a bit shiny.
I also have
does yours work better? Mine's a bit shiny from that lamp. It is Pico Ayer's A Beginner's Guide to Japan, because of course regular listeners will know that I'm a bit obsessed with Japan, having lived there for a couple of years. And it's not a guidebook. It's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like lots of little amazing bits and pieces about Japan, and beautifully written, of course. So
I haven't read it yet, so I can't wait to get into it.
May I give a plug here to say that Pico Iyer is one of my favorite writers and people in the world, so I highly recommend it.
He's amazing, isn't he? So
he's amazing.
Yes. So I've only just started this, but I'm so loving it already, and of course I love Japan as well.
Special person. So.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I was so excited when this book came out that I thought, okay, it has to be on our book club. So so thank you once again, Mary. So
thank you
lovely.
guys very much. It was a pleasure. Okay, bye.
And thanks, Justin, as always. And we'll be in touch.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.